angels, and welcome to today's YouTube video. I'm so excited to film this one because this is going to be all about my nose job or nose jobs because I had two, and you have been asking me so many questions about my nose in general, about my nose jobs, how they went, price and everything, and I'm going to answer you a lot today. This is going to be part one because there's so much I want to talk about. So today I'm going to talk about the price, what I paid for my nose jobs, the pain level, and also about the healing. And I'm going to give you some tips and to talk about my experience. So let's get into it. So I did my first rhinoplasty when I was 21 years old. Now I'm 26, so 5 years ago. And let me tell you that the healing after my first nose job was no fun because I have thick skin. And if you have thick skin, I'm going to explain it to you later. It's going to be a little harder for you with the healing, but it's still going to heal, no worries. But yeah, that's also one of the reasons I got two nose jobs, but it's just because of my taste and because of my dream nose that I wanted to have. So yeah, in 2021, I did my first nose job. I'm going to blend in a picture how my nose looked before. This was me before, and the reason I did my nose job was because I just felt super insecure since I was, I think, 13 or 14 years old or even younger. I just felt that the nose I had was not, I just felt that it didn't fit to my face and I just didn't feel it. So I decided to change it with 21. And I also only recommend changing your nose if you're like 18 plus, because your nose is still growing normally until 21 years. So that's the reason why I decided to do with 21. And for me, it was the best decision ever. So I'm not going to lie, for me, the nose job was the biggest confidence change ever. And I don't want to make anyone change their nose or to influence anyone, but for me, it made me super confident. I love the way my face looks now because it looks way more feminine and just, I don't know, I feel pretty now without makeup, with makeup, just like myself. And before, I didn't feel like myself. I don't know if it makes sense, but to me it makes sense. So that's the reason why I got the nose job in the first place. I did it in 2021, as I said, and I did it in summer, which I don't recommend because the swelling when you do your nose job in summer is going to be a lot more than when you do it in winter or when it's a little bit colder. So I recommend doing it when the weather is colder because your nose is going to swell up every time when you go outside into the heat. And now I also live in the heat, and my second nose job is only 2.5 months ago, and it's a pain because the swelling is going up and down every single day. So I recommend getting it done when it's cold. My second nose job was end of 2025, 2.5 months ago, and I did it because I have thick skin and my nose just decided to not look like the end result I had on the surgery picture because my doctor took a picture and I'm going to show it to you. So this was the result after my first surgery and I was super happy. When I woke up, I cried so much because it was literally my dream nose. But then unfortunately my healing was quite horrible because my nose didn't want to heal. So my skin is super thick and I learned from my doctor that we can have thick or thinner skin, and I have thick skin and it's also harder for them to perform on thick skin, but he did a great job. It just didn't want to heal and turn out like the picture. So I was super frustrated throughout the years. I've been waiting for 5 years until I got my second nose job, and it was just a tiny touch-up. We didn't even open my nose, but I'm going to tell you more about it a little bit later. So I think one of the reasons was that I got it in summer and I immediately went out after my nose job. So when I felt good, I just thought, okay, walking on the streets is totally okay in the bright sun. I didn't even wear a hat, so I recommend if you do it in summer, wear something to protect your nose and your skin around your nose because your nose is going to flare up and to swell a lot more. And you're just going to slow down the healing process, and that's what I basically did. So then when I got back to Germany, I had to get some injections done. It was another doctor that gave me injections to get rid of the swelling, but it didn't work. So my nose looked even worse after those injections. I'm going to blend in a picture. There was a bump that grew on my nose, and I was so sad because I basically had my dream nose on the surgery picture, but then I didn't have it because of my healing. It was my own body that decided to not heal that fast and that well. After 3 injections, I stopped because I didn't see any results, and I thought I'm going to let my nose heal and just to give my nose a lot of time, and that's what I did. So I gave my nose about 5 years, and let me tell you that your nose is going to change a lot. I get so many questions and DMs from you asking me if it's normal that your nose looks super swollen 3, 5, or even like 10 months after rhinoplasty, and trust me, it's totally normal because this is what my nose looked like after 1 year. Then my face was still super stiff, and this is also totally normal because your skin and your face has to get used to your new nose, and for me it just took a little bit longer. So until my smile and just my facial features came back, it took me a little bit longer. After about 2.5 to 3 years, my nose changed so much, so it took me really long to heal, and after, like, as I said, 2.5 or I think it was 3 years, the bump on my nose and most of the swelling was gone. But unfortunately, I didn't have the slide that I wanted to have because my dream nose was a super princessy nose, and I just always dreamed of having a slide, and it didn't turn out that way. So there was a tiny slide, but then at the end it was just too straight for me, so I'm going to blend in a picture. And this was my nose before getting my second nose job, and now it's basically the same thing. I have to wait for the result and for my nose to heal, and I also struggle a lot with swelling, to be honest. But yeah, that's just the reason why I got a second nose job, because I wasn't happy with the result. It was not what I wanted to have, so I was happy in general. I love my nose, and I loved it before the second nose job. Maybe for some people it would have been okay, but for me personally, the thought in my head that I had something else in mind and another dream nose and that I didn't get it was so frustrating that I decided to get a second one. So my second nose job was not an open rhinoplasty because my first one was an open one, and we cut my nose here in the middle and also here, and as you can see, it healed super well. I don't have any harsh scars, so make sure after your rhinoplasty to apply a very good scar cream, but I'm going to give you a lot of tips in my second video. For my second nose job, we did an ultrasonic closed rhinoplasty. So we didn't open my nose. He told me that it was super simple. It just took him 20 minutes, which is absolutely nothing because my first nose job took 4.5 hours. What he did was just to get rid of the skin that didn't want to swell down, so of the skin here on the bridge of my nose. And the technique is super cool because you have less swelling. Also, mostly you wake up and you have no discoloration in your face, which I didn't have, and also no scars, no pain, which I also didn't have. So the experience was super good. Now let's talk about the price, how much I paid in total, not just my nose because I traveled to another country to get it done. I lived in Germany back then, where I grew up, and I traveled to Turkey, to Istanbul, because I decided to get it done by a doctor there. So I paid in total just for my nose, I paid 5,000 euros. It was in 2021. I think now he's a little bit more expensive, but I paid 5,000 for the nose. And then also for the flights and also for the hotels, I paid, I'd say in total, it was 7,000 euros. That was the whole trip to Turkey, back and forth, and the nose job. And I'd say that for a professional doctor and also super clean and professional clinic, the price is super good, because I've heard people getting their nose done for 10,000 plus, and that's a lot. So I think 5,000 is totally okay. Now to the pain level, and honestly the pain level after my first open rhinoplasty was almost nothing. So I'd say from 1 out of 10 my pain level was maybe a 2 or 3. It was not painful at all. It was just super uncomfortable with those things inside my nose. I don't know how they're called, the things that they put into your nose after the surgery, and also with the cast and everything, but it wasn't painful. So I'd say that sleeping was super uncomfortable, eating was very uncomfortable, also breathing, because you have to breathe with your mouth open and also sleep with your mouth open for about 5 days until they remove the things out of your nose and also the cast. So that was a little bit weird, but in general the rhinoplasty for me personally was not painful at all. I just felt a little bit of pressure on the bridge of my nose, but that's it. And also in my second video I'm going to give you lots of tips about what you can do to breathe better and also to feel better after having your rhinoplasty freshly done. And I'm going to give you some tips what you can use to sleep better and all of those things. So I'd say the worst things were the pressure on my nose and also the breathing, especially if your face is super swollen. And let me tell you that after my first rhinoplasty I looked like a chipmunk because my face was so swollen. I'm also going to show you all of my pictures in part 2, and that was the most uncomfortable thing because my eyes were so swollen that on day 2 and 3 I couldn't open my eyes. I get so many questions about the healing phase after a nose job, and the healing phase is the most annoying phase because you want to see the result as quick as possible, but we need to wait because our skin has to get used to the new nose, and in general it just takes time for the swelling to go down. And it's super normal to have bruises in your face, as I said, to be blue, yellow, or even purple in your face, to look super swollen. Some people also have blood in their eyes, and that's also normal. Your nose can bleed, and also you can have regrets, and that's also super normal because if you wake up and you don't look like yourself, you don't even recognize yourself, one with the new nose and then also with the bruises and the swelling and everything in your face, sometimes it can happen that you completely regret your nose job. But trust me, just give your nose a little bit of time, and I'd say that most people are happy with their nose after 4 to 6 months because they see that the swelling goes down and they kind of see the results, because time is what matters in the healing phase. So the healing phase is super annoying, but it's necessary to get our dream nose. So the surgery, I'd say, is actually not the hardest part about a nose job. It's the healing phase because it's the most annoying phase where you have to have a lot of patience. And as I said, I had to wait for 3 years until I could see the final result. So a lot of patience in my case. So that's it for part 1. And in part 2, I'm going to show you lots of before pictures and all pictures from my healing. So how I looked like when I woke up after surgery, the first day, the second day, the third day, because I documented every single day. And as I said, I look totally crazy, but I'm going to show you everything so that you can really see what a nose job looks like. I'm also going to tell you my doctors for the first and the second rhinoplasty because I'm getting tons of questions. And also I did a Q&A on Instagram, and I'm going to answer all of your questions in the second part. So stay tuned, and I see you in part 2. Love you.